Okay, so we are gonna be trying to react to a video here by Shields, and I don't really want to show my face yet, but I think my older videos already show my face, so that's all right. Um, I'll try to uh share my thoughts because while I was playing WoW, I have been seeing all these classic only enjoyers, right? And I want to understand why they don't like retail. And me myself, I'm a retail simp, right? So a little background from me. I am from Final Fantasy 14, but I have tried to play the uh some private servers for WoW before I started. And it was a great experience, right? And then just a few months ago, I started with the official server, and I am enjoying it a lot. And so all the items I say here is my opinion and my experience, right? So that's just a disclaimer. But I do want to know why people love classic more than retail, and maybe I'll try to counter argue their thoughts, or maybe you know I don't know. But let's go ahead and set it. Watch this one. Disclaimer: I've already watched like the first half for this. I just realized maybe it's a good thing to like record this reaction, right? So
Okay, so I put my internet journalist pants on again and dove deep into the world of Reddit and Blizzard forums to find out why classic players don't like retail WoW. As a person who enjoys both classic and retail,
I played private servers, but it's not classic. The oldest one that I played is the Frozen Throne. Right, so Rat of the Lich King, and I have some few experiences there with toxicity. Right, so I'm not sure if that's gonna be uh relevant for some items here from classic players, but I did experience toxicity in private servers, and given I was trying to tank, even though I was new, but it's totally different from Final Fantasy 14. If you're a new tank, people will still try to teach you, right? So I
I was curious to find out why so many people prefer to stick to the classic version of the game. I scrolled through many older posts around the subject and made posts of my own, and this is what I asked.
classic players, why don't you play retail? What things do you find unappealing about retail? What things do you think are better in classic? What do you like about retail?
I managed to get over 400 answers, and this video is entirely based on the data gathered from those answers and some other older forum posts. Now, the last time I did a video like this about why PvEers don't like PvP, I tried to find solutions.
Oh yeah, I did try to play PvP here in WoW. Because a friend of mine that I invited from WoW, really, I mean from FF14, she likes PvP, so we did some. And also one of our original healers in our free company, that's what they call guilds in Final Fantasy. He was an original like WoW player. He also like PvP. So I did experience some PvP in here, but it's more on BGs, not the rank uh, games. I think you need to uh, farm your items before you can survive the rank
To
games.
all the problems people brought up, but in this video, we're not gonna do that because, well, you'll find out when we get to the last question I asked in my forum posts. So, this video is going to be more of an essay type video where we find out the most popular reasons why some people prefer classic.
Yeah, it's just gonna find out, but I still want to maybe try. and share my
over
thoughts.
retail. I'm also going to try to explain all of the topics of this video the best I can and also share some of my personal thoughts on these matters.
Oh, okay.
And with that, let's move on to the video.
The most brought up topics.
Okay, let's start with the most brought up topics that classic players find unappealing in retail WoW. After reading all the answers and posts, I started with listing the most often highlighted issues and divided them into 5 main topics that we will cover in this video. These are MMO feeling, power
Mm-hmm.
progression, focus
Power
on
progression, yeah.
endgame, complexity, and Warcraft feeling.
Okay, so for the Warcraft feeling, I don't think I have much of an experience about that because I'm a fairly new player, but I'm gonna try.
So, MMO feeling. When you think
This is my favorite zone in the latest expect.
of an MMO or massively multiplayer online game, what are the first things that come to your mind? For me, it's a large world, lots of players, and most importantly, interaction between those players. Now, WoW is an MMORPG, but a lot of people said that they feel like retail has lost the MMO feeling, and that
Mm.
retail is moving further and further away from the MMO part and leaning more towards an RPG. Many people said that retail
Uh,
doesn't feel like an MMO because of two main reasons: social interactions and the open world.
okay, I'm a bit curious. Okay, I already forgot what's the items here, but in terms of social interactions, I think it depends on you, right? So I'm basically saying it's a you problem, but um when I was in Final Fantasy, I'm very like social. Like not social like I want to be on events all the time, but if given the chance, I will try to talk, right? So, and also one thing about me is that I really want to face my I see my guildmates in the actual world, not just in the guild chat. As much as possible, when there's a new member in the guild, I want to meet them and camp outside the town. And open world, I'm not sure why they think that it's one of the main reason why it doesn't feel like an MMO. I think it's natural that you don't always see um people around the world because the world is just getting bigger and bigger, right? And I do understand some people uh keep on saying what because I think I saw some videos before that classic players wanted to keep the original Azeroth world, right? And it's getting bigger, and of course people are not seeing each other anymore and so on. But I really can't blame that because it's not really. Imagine if WoW just expands or just in its 20 years of gameplay, it's just around Azeroth, the two main uh islands, right? Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms. I'm not sure how they would go about that without changing that current world, right? And I know that some classic um enjoyers didn't like Cataclysm because their original world was changed by the big dragon, right? It made the world bigger. It's still Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms, but it was broken so that it would be bigger, I think, right? But then again, I'm a newer player.
Let's start with social interactions. Retail WoW is definitely a more antisocial game than Classic. And this is mostly because of the fact that over the years, Blizzard has tried to make accessing endgame content more convenient through LFG, and now most of the endgame is interacted with through queuing for it in the LFG tool instead of interaction between players. This has made it way easier and less cumbersome to do endgame content, but it has also removed a lot of social interaction between players. The LFG tool has also reduced the need to keep up social connections.
Okay, so there's so many hate on the LFG, but I think you just need to find your people, right? When you're playing your MMO. On my first few months in Final Fantasy, uh I was very like alone even if I'm in a guild. Right? And I think I was not in the right guild back then. And I think that I was more enjoying the story, so it didn't really matter. But when I finished the story, that's when I felt how lonely it was, because you know I don't have the right people. But we when I got into a new free company, that's when the magic started, right? Every day I log in, I'm happy. We just talk for hours, and so I think there's also the aspect of finding the right people, right? It doesn't mean that the game is no longer social, right? I still have some friends that I have some friends that I meet and we talk in town or outside the town. I have some friends that we I have a friend back here in wow, I'm not sure if he's still active, but Max, he wants to talk while we're walking outside. So we walk outside Dornogal. We were we walk outside BFA zone one time while talking. It was a very beautiful zone. So it's really finding the right people, I think.
With good players you enjoyed playing with, because it's so easy to find people for your groups through the LFG.
This one, yeah, I understand people just sign up for your um party, right? But isn't that the same with just promoting your party or looking for party members in trade chat or in general chat? Isn't just the same? Isn't just that the same? I don't think you if I'm not sure if this happens. I'm sure it happened back in the day, right? Where you actually walk up to people and say, "Hey, um, can we party up?" But if you're in town and you're looking for mates, party members in trade chat, isn't that almost the same with this one, the party finder? So okay, so yeah, that's what I think at least.
Tool. Also, the whole fast paced and skill based endgame formula of retail often leaves little room and time for socializing with other players, and people are more focused on clearing the content as efficiently and as fast as possible. Many classes
Yeah, I think that only applies to the normal and heroic dungeons, right? And I think those are the easy dungeons. I'm not sure. Okay, maybe not everyone considers them easy, but because that depends on your skill level. But I think they are the entry dungeons, right? And because they are quote unquote easy enough to do, there's really no point in trying to look for a group to run a normal or heroic dungeon, right? That's what I think at least. Um, but in searching for groups for because there's an argument here where you go to the dungeon finder and then it just teleports you to the dungeon, right? But if you run mythics, you can't just be teleported to the dungeon. You need to fly there. You need to go there, right? And then of course, if there's already two of you, you can help each other out and summon the remaining members. That still works as like you get teleported there, right? But someone has to fly there, right?
Classic players find this more antisocial environment unappealing and, for that reason, prefer Classic and the social interactions that come with it. Okay, let's move on to the open world part of the MMO feeling.
See, there's already a lot of islands, so I can't imagine the game surviving 20 years with just Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor. Or maybe, okay, let's count Northrend because that's the Lich King era, right? And it's one of the best. But even with just those three big lands, I don't think the game can expand enough to be that, great.
Retail WoW has had 9 expansions added to the game over the last 20 years, and with each of those expansions have come more zones and areas for players to explore.
Of
The
course.
downside to this, however, is the fact that while the open world has grown larger and larger, the player base of Retail WoW has only grown smaller. The outcome of this is that
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
far less players out there in the different zones of the open world,
Mm.
especially the older zones that don't have anything to do with the current endgame content, feel empty and dead because there's
Okay, this is Orgrimmar. I'm not sure which server they are, but wait, I think they are in a dead server, right? Uh, or maybe on a PvP side server or something like that. And if you're PvPing, of course, you're not gonna be inside the town. You're gonna be at least in the gate or outside looking for kills.
really no
But I did a bit of research, of course, and before I entered so that I don't experience this kind of issue. And I went to an RP server, if even though I don't really RP, um, I still went to an RP server just so I get that MMO feeling that they're talking about here. You see people in the world, right? Walking around, doing the events, doing the world quests, uh, grouping up for the world boss, and so on.
incentive for players.
And of course, RP servers, the main towns are still packed, right? I'm talking about Moonguard. There's still a lot of people in Stormwind doing their own, things.
To go into those zones. This results in many people feeling like they're playing a solo game since outside of the current expansion zones, you rarely come across other players. Having an empty open
Yeah, okay, so I have a guild, right? And okay, this guy is in a crossroad. I don't think this is a hot spot. You can't expect each corner of the world to have people, right? So totally out of context here. Or like I'm not sure if this area counts as something you would. Where is this zone? Is this Dragonflight or no? Is this the war we did?
world kills the MMO feeling of the game for many people and makes the game feel more like an RPG than an MMORPG. Many classic players say that the open world in
Okay, he's comparing the two, videos. The one he's walking alone on a path, and this one with a lot of new players in a party in a raid group, walking to, I don't know, somewhere, right? But this must be an event. You can't expect this to be normal on classic. I don't think so, but I might be wrong. Okay, looks like the Savix and Guzu streamers are here, but this is not a normal thing. Just like in life, not every day is, special. Most are boring days, and that's all right.
classic feels much more alive.
I still see groups in Dornogal that goes with I still see groups like doing a march, like a line with the same sets. I know there are still groups in Westfall that do some sort of events. There's the Stormwind events, of course. and this is just outside the Stormwind. Um, I bet if you're on the other zones, higher level zones in Classic, you're gonna see like two, three, four, five players, of course. But that's not the same as the one we're looking at the screen right now. So I think it's unfair to compare this shot with the one where he's just walking
And for
outside
that reason,
the
they
open world.
enjoy it a lot more.
I'm not sure if that's Dragonflight or War Within. Looks like War Within.
Now that we're done talking about the MMO feeling, let's talk about power progression. I would argue that most MMORPG players enjoy the feeling of seeing the time and effort put into the game bear fruit in the form of their characters growing stronger and more powerful. This is, in fact, a very important part of the game for many players of WoW and other MMORPGs as well. And in Classic WoW, in my opinion, the player power progression is done very well, and more time put into playing almost always results in a more powerful character. Whereas in Retail WoW, the power progression system is very convoluted and distorted because of the different systems implemented throughout the years.
Yeah,
Okay, let me
I think Classic wins on this one because Retail didn't design a path for new players to follow, right? The recommended path is Dragonflight, I think. Um, and it's okay if you run with that timeline, but if you want to try BFA and it's a totally new character, the quest rewards are odd, at least from my experience when I was new. So the scaling is also odd. So Classic wins on in terms of power progression.
try to explain this a little bit. First of all, in Classic WoW,
And also there's already a lot of stat squishes on Retail. And I'm gonna feel that for the first time in the upcoming Midnight expansion because I know there's gonna be a stat squish and I'm already doing millions of damage right now. And it's gonna be back to the thousands by the time that Midnight releases. So I'm gonna feel that. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but let's see.
the player character's power progression is very linear from the very first level all the way up to the final endgame content. As you gain levels and gear, you feel their effect and get a satisfying loop of feeling your character's power grow and allowing you to take on more challenging content, which then again results in better gear and more levels. In Retail WoW, however, more often than not, the level scaling of enemies and stats make it so that as you gain more levels, you actually become less powerful as
Yeah, I understand this one
enemy scaling system
because the your enemy is already scaled on your level, but your gears are still not. That's why when I mentioned earlier, if you're playing Dragonflight, I think that's okay because there's enough quest rewards so that you don't really get left behind by your level, right? So I think that's all right. But if you play other timelines, if you play Classic, that's gonna be very rough. Right? No, when I say Classic, I mean the original zones in Retail. If you really want to play the Classic timeline, I mean.
start to take effect. This feeling of your character getting worse while progressing through the game seems to be a big turnoff for many players. Another thing that many Classic players don't like about Retail's power progression is the fact that it is, in their words, an infinite treadmill. What people are referring to here is the fact that Retail WoW's seasonal progression system results in all power level progress becoming obsolete in the next season.
Yeah, I totally get this one. In the next season, with the new zone, the rewards are already better than the one that you farmed in the previous season. So yeah, it really is Classic that's winning on this one.
This happens because of the huge gear item level differences between seasons, and also the various catch-up mechanics that help people reach better gear at the start of the season. This means that the gear that is hard to obtain in this current season
I experienced this first time on from season 1 to season 2 of The War Within. Um, because before season 2, I think season 2 is under mine. I was doing delves and I was doing great already. I'm doing like 9 or 10, tier 9 or 10 delves already. And then I, I in my mind, I'm already geared enough to run 8 to 10, tiers 8 to 10, right? So when season 2 came in, of course, to do my weeklies, I went ahead to tier 8, to a tier 8 dungeon. But it was too hard for me because it was already scaled with the new gears. So I totally understand this one.
Will be very easy to obtain in the next one, making the effort put into gearing in the current season not feel so impactful in the long term. Lots of people that answered my questions disliked the fact that your power level in retail WoW only stays relevant for the couple of months the season
That is true.
lasts, and then you have to start your progress all over again.
Yes, but classic players, after the reset yearly, also goes back to level 1. So, right, I'm looking at XQC here. I remember Soda Poppin. So, I think a new season just started. So, everyone is back to 1 in classic WoW. Hardcore, at least. I'm not sure about the normal classic servers. I don't think they changed, but the hot thing right now is hardcore, right? And they love going back to level 1 on the yearly reset and then trying it all over again. Isn't it just the same with the next season? You just gear up a bit, right? So okay, so that's just me being a retail enjoyer, of course, but let me know what you think.
Next, I will try to make it more simple to understand the differences in power progression between retail and classic WoW through some graphs, since it's a lot harder to try and explain in words. Okay, let's start with classic WoW. Like I said before, classic WoW's power progression is very linear. You start at level 1 and each level and each gear upgrade will make you stronger and make it easier for you to overcome challenges.
Okay.
This is not affected by any scaling systems, so for example, a level 55 elite will be hard to kill at level 55. But once you get to level 60 and you obtain some gear, the elite will be much easier to kill.
Okay, so we're talking about scaling in the gears, right? But my example earlier um was only the uh the delves, right? But the open world is still the same. They are still easy to kill and you almost one shot them by the next season, right? Because you're already powerful. I don't think the open world, scales with the gear progression for the expansion. So, okay. Yeah, that's what I think, but let me know if that's not correct, right?
Whereas in retail, the scaling of enemies and seasonal resets make the power progression look more like a sine wave in a graph. Let's say an expansion starts at the very first peak of the wave and you have obtained good gear in the last expansion. As you start leveling and gaining more levels, the scaling systems start to take effect, and unless you constantly get good gear upgrades, the enemies will start to feel stronger and your character will start to feel weaker.
And that's just in um dungeons and delves, right? It doesn't count the open world. Again, let me know.
This is usually at its worst around the time you reach the new maximum level. Only after you reach the new maximum level and start obtaining better gear will the power level scale start leaning in your favor. This same power level sine wave will also continue through the many seasons in the new expansion, as the seasonal endgame content is scaled for the new seasonal item levels. So, in a nutshell, many players prefer Classic because of the linear power progression, where every upgrade to your character will remain an upgrade, and power progression is not reset seasonally, and you can even take a year's break.
Right. So when that happens, right? Um. Okay. I'm not really sure if this is correct. Okay, but let me know. Uh, after the new season, which was Undermine, of course, I'm weaker against Undermine mobs because it's a new place, right? It's a new type of mob. But that doesn't mean that I'm weak. I got weaker against mobs from the Isle of Dorn. I still can kill them easily with my stuff. But let me know because maybe I'm just remembering it wrong.
Break from the game and still have your character be as relevant as it was before.
So if I think about it that way, that graph doesn't really work except for the dungeons and delves. So yeah.
Before you left. Many players feel as if they wasted their time gearing a character in retail, since that progress will eventually become obsolete. Okay, next we're gonna talk about retail WoW's focus on endgame. One of the major issues that classic players find off-putting about retail is the fact that the game mostly revolves around current endgame content.
Okay, that's the current endgame content: raiding plus M plus rated PvP. Okay, but is it really just the current endgame? When was this video uploaded? Oh, 1 year ago. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. But that's already midnight, right? So I need to know. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Midnight. I mean the War Within release August 26, 2024. Okay, so there's already delves in here. I'm not sure why he's not counting delve as a new endgame. August, September, October, November. There's like 3 months to understand that delve is also an endgame thing when he was editing this video.
The whole game feels like it's designed to rush you through the game and get you into the current endgame loop as fast as possible. This makes the leveling and early gearing part of the game feel
Okay, there's boosting in Final Fantasy 14, so it's pretty normal for me. But there's also boosting in Guild Wars 2. There's also boosting in um WoW retail, of course, but I don't feel it. Right? I don't feel it. People boosting. Like I don't care. It doesn't affect me really. So I'm not sure why it's the biggest thing with WoW players. Right? And it's more expensive than the actual game. So I don't think there's a lot of people who actually buys the boost unless they are really lazy and have money at the same time. Okay. But I still think leveling is still fun in retail in your in your own in my own opinion, right?
more like an annoying
So um I don't think about buying the boost because I think leveling is still fun, especially with Remix right now.
obstacle than a natural part of the game. Many classic players feel like the leveling phase in retail is simply too fast. The leveling is so fast that you can't even complete longer storylines of the game before reaching the maximum level.
That's true, but that could also be a con on some players, right? Some players just want to play it straight. Some players, um, some players want to enjoy the story, right? And I think you have the um, choice to continue with the expansion, even if you already hit the level, right? So, for example, if I'm playing Dragonflight and I already reach, I think 68 triggers the War Within quest chain, right? But do you need to go to the War Within? Or, right, it triggers the quest, right? But you can abandon it, you can continue what you're doing in Dragonflight, and you can still feel the power progression while being in Dragonflight, right? Because you start doing the world events, the elemental storm, right? But maybe, of course, there are less players in there, and I totally understand that, right? But you can still continue the story, just like what's being, discussed in here. So I saw this video from one guy. He played WoW for the first time, and he started with BFA, and he enjoyed the story because he pushed through con- completing story campaigns in BFA.
And for many people, the incentive to start doing the current endgame content at that point means that they rarely get to fully experience the stories and campaigns that the leveling experience has to offer. The leveling phase of classic WoW, however, is in stark contrast to what it is in the retail version.
Okay, let's go back a bit. Let's go back a bit.
In classic WoW, is experience has to really get to fully doing the current endgame content level. And for many people, the incentive to start doing the current endgame content at that point means that they rarely get to fully experience the stories and campaign.
Okay, so I'm not an English native, right? But I think he's trying to say that people are forced to continue the current expansion because of the rewards, right? The incentive, right? But if you're thinking that, aren't you, going away with your classic enjoyer mindset? Aren't you like min maxing already because you're already thinking that I need to gear up so that I can continue the game? But why not continue the current expansion you're playing and without being geared up by the current expansion, right? So it's all copium, right? All these things I'm talking about is very like simpy with the retail uh version of WoW. But I'm just you know sharing my thoughts.
That the leveling experience has to offer. The leveling phase of classic WoW, however, is in stark contrast to what it is in the retail version. In classic WoW, the leveling phase feels like a natural part of the game, and some players even enjoy it over the endgame content of classic WoW. Leveling in classic takes a long time, but for me and many others, it doesn't feel like an obstacle to be quickly overcome, but more like an experience to be enjoyed.
Yeah, I just said it, right? So why not enjoy the current expansion that you're playing with, and don't force yourself to jump to the next expansion, right? um yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that, but yeah.
I personally feel like the slower paced leveling of classic WoW also allows you to learn your new classes more easily as you're
Oh, this one classic totally wins on that.
not bombarded with new abilities and passives left.
But there's already like a lot of pruning in the new version of the game, so there's less skills, and you have the option to not choose some of the active skills, right? On your skill tree there are some branches that gives you a new active skill. But what I actually do, I just go ahead and choose the passive one so that I don't get, more buttons. So I try to choose uh, as much passive abilities as I can.
and right, and you have a lot of
So that resulted to me like having one to four, 1, 2, 3, 4 major buttons only. For example, here as a sub rogue, I only have like 1 to 4 buttons. I don't even do my AOE rotation because the hero tree that I chose has a passive that makes all your attacks AOE.
time to get used to how your different
The
abilities
Nimble
work
Fury.
before you reach the maximum level. Okay, the next major topic we're gonna talk about is complexity. Many classic players said that they feel very overwhelmed by the amount of different systems implemented to the game over the years.
Yeah, I think this is true, but because I'm a new player, I don't really think I'm affected by it.
There are 20 years worth of different
Like I don't care about the features from other XMAC expansions really.
systems in the game, and while most of them are not relevant in the current content, there still are a lot of systems to learn and understand.
Crafting is fun in my opinion. Professions, of course. PvP gearing is fun. I'm just doing BGs. I'm not doing ranks. Portals and zeppelins. I think that's almost almost non-existent anymore. Non-existent anymore. The zeppelins. I know that's the airships. Item upgrade system. Yeah, that's confusing when I first started. Jump sockets, of course. That's confusing when I first started. I didn't know that you can do that. M plus affix rotation, yeah, that's confusing at first, but you just need to look at your what's happening and you'll understand it. War bands, what's that? DPS simulation.
Makes
Okay, that's the
this
rotation, I think.
situation even worse is the fact that often the game doesn't do a very good job of explaining these systems to
Yes, that is true.
players.
This system sucks. There, I said it. Well, how is anyone supposed to ever figure this out unless you read a whole freaking handbook?
Okay, I didn't read a full handbook to understand this one. And it might surprise you, but I just went ahead and asked my guildmate how it worked. And it just clicked. Right? You just ask someone, they teach you, and you understand. And that's an MMO feeling, I think. I didn't Google it. I didn't read
This doesn't make any sense.
a handbook. It's the very same classic enjoyers that are, contradicting themselves. Why do you need to understand the crafting order system right away when you're a new player? I don't think you need that system, right? You don't need to understand it. You just enjoy questing around the world. You will get geared up. You do events that you see around the world, you will get geared up enough to survive the open world. And that's what the classic enjoyers want, right? I don't think you need to understand it right away.
These systems are also very hard to figure out intuitively, so more often than not, you have to Google how they work.
Again, I didn't Google, I just asked for someone from my guild.
Another
And
thing that creates a new layer of complexity to the retail version of the game is the fact that there are constant changes and updates being done to the game that affect class balance, systems, currencies,
this one is true.
and so on. And in order to keep up with these changes, players have to read developer blue posts on the forums and
I never read blue posts except if it's an event that has some transmog rewards.
Wowhead. I personally read weekly hotfix blue posts and different updates
No, I don't read this one.
weekly to stay on top of things that are happening in retail WoW. The fact that constant changes aren't being made to the classic version also means that you can take a long break from the game, and when you come back, the skills and knowledge you've gathered so far will still be relevant and useful. Whereas in Retail WoW, taking a long break and returning to the game will often mean that the game has dramatically changed and you're
Okay, I'm not sure about this one, right? Because I played the classic version. I mean the Wrath of the Lich King version, and if for example, if you're a warrior, you still have your charge. You still have your whirlwind. If you're a rogue, you still have your stealth. You still have your evaporate, right? Or your backstab, your poison, that you put in your weapons. If you're a paladin, you still have your consecration. You still have your judgment, right? So it's still there to a certain to a certain extent, to a certain degree, right?
main class, for example, might have reworked talents and a completely new, different playstyle, and your previous experience is no longer that relevant. And many people that answered my question said that they enjoy classic WoW over retail for this very reason. Some people prefer the fact that they know exactly what they're getting from a new character and how class balance and different systems work from the very first levels to the final end game.
Okay, but classic is notorious with imbalance, right? Okay, Warcraft feeling. This one, as I mentioned, I'm a new player, so I might not be able to really give a lot of opinions about this one.
Okay, moving on to our final main topic, which is Warcraft feeling. Many people seem to feel like Retail WoW has over the years lost its identity and no longer lives up to the expectations people have for a Warcraft game, both story and graphics wise. The lore
What graphics? I think graphics wise. What?
and look of a Warcraft's identity and no longer lives up to the expectations people have for a Warcraft game, both story.
Okay, the story part, maybe I understand why they say that, but the graphics part, they just modernized the game, right? Okay, maybe because old school RuneScape doesn't want their game to be modernized, right? So maybe it's valid upscaling the graphics to this extent might not be a good thing for everyone. It's kind of surprising when something changed the next time we log in. So okay, maybe I understand that.
The lore and look of the game has in many players' eyes been very.
Yeah, but it's a new engine, so that the game it feels smoother. But that also means that they need to create, a higher resolution. Okay, so maybe it's about the gory stuff. Maybe, yeah. It's becoming more friendly, I guess. So that makes sense.
Disneyfied, and the story
Disneyfied.
no longer follows in the footsteps of the more brutal and war-focused pattern that Warcraft lore used to have. The story of the game now has more of an emotional focus, and the major cinematics and
Yeah, but I still like. Yeah. I agree with the story part.
storylines focus more on very.
But then again, I'm from Final Fantasy.
Disney feeling.
That's why I don't really mind.
Topics of family and friendship and feelings, which is the very opposite of what some people expect from Warcraft lore. I'm sure some people enjoy how the current story of the game is developing, but especially many classic players think that the story of Retail WoW has thematically gone in a wrong direction. A lot of WoW players grew up on Warcraft games and prefer to play Classic WoW over Retail because they feel like Classic WoW still holds true to what they expect from
Yeah, makes
a
sense.
Warcraft game.
Yeah, like the war, of course, in the Warcraft name.
Now we finally come to the last two questions that I asked classic players to share their opinions on, and the reason why I didn't try to figure out how retail WoW could be made more appealing to the classic audience. When asked about what classic players do like about retail WoW, the answers were mostly about the transmog system and some quality of life features.
Okay, I understand the transmog because in the classic stuff, if you have this specific gear, then you look cool, right? But there are still things in in uh in uh in retail that makes you look cool, right? Like the one we're looking at. I think it's a mythic version. That's way cooler than the normal and the um heroic version, right? It's a shadow priest or something. There's a mount that you can only get after a specific achievement. The meta achievement, I think, right now is the big truck, right? The boss in Undermine, you make it your mount. And what else? I think there's a gladiator mount. I think there's a mythic dungeon mount. The 2K and 3K rating, you get rewarded a unique mount that only you can only get if you reach that, and not everyone can do it, right? So it feels good. So there's still something about, I know we're talking about transmog and I'm talking here about mounts, but yeah, I think it's this it's kind of the same thing. It's a trophy, right? It's a trophy to show someone else in an MMO that you are, better or more hardworking about in the game.
But these two things were also often on the list of things that people didn't like about retail WoW, so I think the classic community is somewhat divided on whether these things are a good or a bad thing. Okay, then moving on to the last question of what would need to change in retail in order to make classic players consider playing it. And the vast majority of the people I asked answered that no amount of changes will make them want to play retail. Many classic players seem to feel that the retail WoW is simply too far removed from what the game used to be, and
Which is
unless the
true.
whole game is remade, they simply have no interest in playing it. And for this
Yeah, but if the classic game is remade, then that means there will be modern aspects added to it, which is now what is happening in retail.
reason, I didn't try to think of how the issues classic players have with retail could be addressed. Many people consider classic and retail WoW to be two very different games that are to be enjoyed for different reasons
Yeah, that's true.
and in different ways. And
Yeah, it's technically different games now. It's not the same.
I completely agree with this myself. I enjoy the fast-paced, difficult retail endgame and the collection of transmogs and
Yeah, collection is such a good thing, and there's now housing, another trophy that you can show someone.
mounts, but I also enjoy the chill, classical MMORPG leveling and gearing experience that classic WoW has to offer.
Yeah, I
I would
already
like
told
to
you what
know
I
how
think.
people feel about these issues, so go to the comment section and tell me if you feel like something is missing from these topics and whether you agree or disagree with them. I would also like to know how many of you are playing only classic or only retail, or if you're playing both like I do. And
Nah, I only
finally, I
play
want to give
retail
a
already.
big thanks to all the people who answered my questions and made this video possible. And I would of course like to thank you for watching this video. Hope to see you in the next one.
Okay, it seems that I already saw this one. I have a comment in here. Okay.
Guys, recently Blizzard has released the classic fresh
Okay,
rounds,
let's
and
go
you
back.
better
Let's go back. I
believe
think I'm gonna get a lot of hate
Okay, so I
from this one. because I said that I'm enjoying it, right? Ay, nice to see. Because this was when I started. I'm from Final Fantasy. Yeah, community is far from Final Fantasy. To find the chat in game, because every time in terms of how the game is built funnels you in basically speedrunning. If you stop to chat in things like dungeons, you'll just get left behind, which is only for normal and heroic. I have felt this too. I was kinda after I get through the whole MSQ and I was about to start this. I should definitely go back, but WoW has been really engrossing. Meeting people in newcomer chatting. Yeah, people are having fun. I think people are. Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned here in my comment, I think so. I commented here fairly new 10 months ago. I see some of the comments talking about what happened here is that I played a few months ago and then I stopped. I went back to Final Fantasy. So that's why when I started this video, I'm like a few months new because I had a hiatus, right? Because I already had a family in Final Fantasy 14. Of course, it's gonna call me back. Mm. Yeah, I saw this video that says don't play games efficiently, don't min max the game. And ever since I watched that video, I that's all that has always been my mindset, right? So they start, yeah, back then they started asking me to do mythic and PvP, but I didn't. And talking to people so I can feel it is an MMO because I am talking to people, right? Yeah, I try to talk to anyone who I meet in the open world, even if it's just a simple wave, right? I think that's normal, that's healthy stuff. If you're hating the game because there's no people in the game and then you're in there seeing people and you're not trying to interact, I think that's a different thing, right? But yeah, let's just say that the most brought up topics, the MMO feeling. I think this is depends on the person, right? The power progression, of course. Uh I'm still 50-50 about it because of the things that I mentioned, right? The classic enjoyers actually enjoy the reset every year for the hardcore, and then I don't think that the open world is affected by this, but the dungeons are. Of course, the new zone is stronger. That's normal, right? You don't want to be already so strong in the first zone and then they release a new zone. You're still that strong. Of course, you need to gear up. But I understand that it feels like the items you've been farming in the previous season has not been, that helpful and is easily replaced. Focus on the end game. There's already a new end game for casuals, the delves, now the housing. But I'm not gonna talk about housing here. I'm just gonna talk about delves because that's released when this happened. This video was uploaded, right? And he didn't mention it. He didn't consider it an end game, but it is an end game for someone, and it's a great thing. Complexity. I'm not really affected by the complexity because again, I'm a newer player. But then you don't need to understand everything right away. You don't need to read a handbook to understand the crafting order. I talked to my guildmate, he taught me how it works. And I requested the crafting order. And it's great. Yeah, the changes. Your signature moves from the older times are still there, but I understand how they some things were changed. Your cooldowns were changed.